of this morning's panel is Mr. Quang An. And I want to make note that in your program, his name is backwards. So please, when you address him, it is Mr. Ang. However, what you don't see there is that he's also a Master Mariner. So he is Captain Ang. We're so glad that he can be here today. He's going to share the 4 strategies for a program in Korea called Smart Navigation.
Thank you, Helen. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank to the organizer of this meeting for giving me an opportunity to introduce the Korean strategy for the e-navigation. The Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries, MOF, is implementing various policies to strengthen the national capability, maritime safety and security, such as vessel traffic services, nationwide AIS, the General Information Center on Maritime Safety and Security, we call the GCOMS. Especially, we are preparing the big project as a national plan to address the various safety issues regarding e-navigation. As IMO is going to finalize the strategy implementation plan of the e-navigation, the Korean government has established a national strategy plan in 2013. According to this plan, the Korean government will invest for the development of the technologies and expansion of the infrastructure. Considering the special maritime circumstances in Korea, this project will be focused on not only the IMO's full capability, but also fishing boat and the small-sized domestic ships, named Smart Navigation's Korean's version of the e-navigation. Today, I would like to talk about the GCOMS first, Smart Navigation, strategy for the e-navigation in Korea, and the conclusion with the roadmap and organization. Okay, I would like to begin by saying GCOMS. We have various maritime safety issues in Korea. 70% of the marine accidents are caused by the fishing vessels. 100 people died in fishing vessels accident every year. 67% of marine accidents occurred in the coastal area. And 73% of the accidents involved in the small-sized ships, less than 100 gross tonnage. The vision of the GCOMS project is to establish a national maritime crisis management system. The goal of the project are to manage maritime accident and the dangerous situation, to monitor all flagged vessels in the world, to share information between government agencies, and to provide public information services. The GCOMS project was carried out from the 2002 until 2012 by dividing 2 pages. The major output of this project is nationwide AIS network, vessel monitoring systems based on the mobile, radio frequency, AIS, and the satellite, GCOMS data center with an integrated system, and the data exchange among the government agencies. The GCOMS consists of 4 main parts. The vessel monitoring systems based on the various communications, the GCOMS data center for the international information exchange, maritime situation management system, information services to various users by the internet. This is the real case of the GCOMS information service for pirates warning to a vessel. When a pirate invaded vessel, the ship security alert will go to the GCOM center, and the GCOM center will send the alert message to all the Korean vessels near the scene of the piracy. GCOMs provide the various maritime safety information service to the ships through existing equipment such as AIS, NavTex, and mobile phone. I understand that this is the real case of the e-navigation. The only thing to do is making decision and implementation in a harmonized way. From this point of view, I would like to say that the GCOMS is a pre-model of e-navigation. The fact that marine accidents have been occurred mainly in coastal areas by small fishing vessels makes Korea design its own version of e-navigation called the smart navigation. There are three parts for key elements in smart navigation, just the same as IMO's e-navigation: the onboard ship, the shore-based resources, and the network. In addition to the 16 e-navigation maritime service portfolio by the IMO, we are going to expand the special concerns to dangerous and the accident vulnerable sectors such as fishing vessels, coastal passenger ships, and the leisure craft. Next, strategy for the smart navigation. The vision of the smart navigation is to establish a framework that provides a platform for seamless information exchange between ships and the ship and shore. The goals are to enhance the safety and the security of the navigation, to improve efficiency of the shipping, and to overcome an information gap at sea through the harmonization of marine information and the breaking communication barrier. Korea has 4 strategies for the smart navigations. The first, development of the core technologies. Second, expansion of national infrastructure. Third, strengthen international cooperation. And finally, partnership with the stakeholders. According to these strategies, Korea is planning to carry out a government-led R&D research and development project with $2,020 million for 5 years from next year. Expansion of national infrastructure, such as Smart Navigation Operation Center and Maritime Communication Network, LTE. Also, organizing the Smart Navigation Forum to support the government. To facilitate the seamless communication network in the coastal water, we are going to set up the government-owned mobile LTE, long-term evolution. This marine LTE network enables This marine LTE network enables free exchange of multimedia files between ship and shore, and the free use of the internet in the port and the coastal waters. As Dr. Lee Alexander mentioned, the access will be compulsory navigational equipment from the 2018. The automatic electronic chart update service and the exchange of the multimedia data between VTS operator and the navigator on board will have to enhance the safety of the navigation significantly. We are also going to develop the communication network based on the digital GMDSS in the range of the 100 to 300 kilometers from the coast. I will talk about a little bit more about the R&D project. We are going to develop the technologies for IMO's e-navigation services, maritime service portfolios, technologies for information exchange, technologies for marine information services for non-solar ships, and maritime network technology based on the land infrastructure. The following is an architecture of the smart navigation. As I mentioned in the former slide, the various infrastructures are the basis for the maritime for smart navigation. Many smart navigation services will be realized based on this platform. Smart navigation platform will facilitate the navigation environment just like a smartphone. There are several steps for policy-making progresses at the government level. In March 2013, the Minister of Oceans and Fisheries have been revived at the public commitment of the President Barr. In October 2013, the draft smart navigation strategy was reported to the President. In November, the smart navigation strategy was adopted as a national strategy plan at the Economic Ministers Conference. Currently, we are preparing the national R&D project for the smart navigation, and the new project will be kicked off in 2015. According to the national strategy plan, we are going to carry out the conceptual design of the smart navigation next year. From 2015, Korea will invest in developing technologies and the construction of infrastructure, including test projects. The steering committee and the working level committee will be established for governing the smart navigation strategy. A smart navigation forum will be established to support the steering committee as an advice group to the government. Finally, the project working group will be properly organized to ensure the expertise to research and the development for the effective project management. Yes, this is the final slide. Conclusion. As I mentioned during my presentation, GCOMS was established for maritime crisis management system and will be a pre-model of the e-navigation. The smart navigation is a Korean version of e-navigation and the national project. Lastly, Korea wishes to play a key role in global implementation of e-navigation together with the e-navigation lead countries. Lastly, I would like to have some announcement for our upcoming big event. Korea will hold the 18th Seoul International Maritime Forum in Seoul on 23rd of April under the theme of the e-navigation. Thank you for listening.
So today, I think we have a great foundation for conversation, and for the rest of the conference, we heard about the broad range of ways in which we could view e-navigation. We learned how IMO is looking at e-navigation. We heard very much about how the U.S. Government is looking at the broader future of navigation. We heard about both the Korean and the Canadian government aspects. We heard about a parallel work effort out of the White House from the National Ocean Policy. So I'd like to open it to questions now. We have exactly 30 minutes. We caught up. Do you believe that? Wow. Excellent. So we have a full 30 minutes. We can, and then I'll turn it over to the Captain Pakoda to give you logistics for lunch. But are there any questions for our panelists? Wow. Okay, well, I'll start it off. If I could, gentlemen from Canada, Korea, and Norway, funding is a challenge in the United States. We're competing, as I talked a little bit about infrastructure funding challenges, we're competing not only with bricks and mortar, generally speaking, on maritime, but also with the national transportation system. I wonder if each of you could share a little bit about how your governments respectfully are looking at navigation safety and navigation technologies in particular for funding and where they are prioritized within your systems. Anybody can go first. And we do have a microphone there. I'd really appreciate it if you could pass it along to each other. Oops. Is there a switch? I guess we should have checked that first. There we go.
This one works.
Okay. Okay, good thing we have some technicians in the room.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think this works. Thank you very much. If I now put on my hat as the director of the Norwegian Coastal Administration, the Norwegian Coastal Administration is responsible for the maritime part of a national transportation plan. It's a 4 years plan, and what we have done there is to include the IMO e-navigation strategy in that plan, and that plan was decided to be carried out by the Norwegian Parliament in June last year, and we have annual budget posts in that plan, so we receive funding for e-navigation proposals every year. And I think that the work we carried out and plans to carry out is more or less the same as Mike's solution presented for the U.S. It's about information exchange and services provided to ships in order to increase the safety, security, and protection of the environment, and of course efficiency. So that's the Norwegian approach to e-navigation. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Ang.
Okay, I will tell you about the Korean cases. People say that Korea is a very dynamic and fast country in the world. Actually, we have a very tough time for the ministry for the last 5 years. 5 years ago, the ministry was dismissed for the small government. Fortunately, the reviving the ministry was the elective commitment of the president part. We report to the president last year, and we made a decision very quickly, and finally the government level decided to invest the government budget to develop the e-navigation project. As the amount was, as I mentioned in my presentation, $220 million directly from the government budget. It's a very simple way and a very fast way to funding the money to invest the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patone.
Thank you, and thank you for the question. In Canada, we have actually a user fee that's in place for some of our services. So I would say traditional services. So aids navigations, vessel traffic services, icebreaking services are all subject to some form of fee within the country. Our government actually, and my commissioner, has been quite vocal about increasing this fee because it's actually not recovering all of the costs that we incur. So there is work actually taking place to revise this fee and to essentially try to increase it over the future. But at the same time, e-navigation is coming. Our users are asking for changes. And we could take the option of not doing anything and waiting for fees to increase, for additional money to be provided by the government. And while we're trying to make the case to actually get some more money, I think we just can't wait until that kind of money comes around. I did mention in my presentation that we actually have done a lot of successes in e-navigation so far in Canada. Those did not come necessarily with big additional of money. They just came over time as we started to switch how we're doing business and actually take the clients as a user of information and start modifying our way of doing business. So what I would say is in Canada, we're starting to do it. Money is a challenge, it will be a challenge, but it doesn't prevent from planning, it doesn't prevent from doing baby steps, from starting to harmonize and all of that, so that when investments are taking place, they're taking place with e-navigation concept in mind, so they're realigned essentially towards this new way. So as the fees will be increasing through our traditional services, those services will actually need to be revisited at some point in terms of how the e-navigation take-up will be into the future. So this long-term evolution will make that we're going to make a lot of progress. Could take a bit longer than we think. Any injection that the Canadian government will give us will be helpful, but if not, we still can make progress.
Thank you. Dr. Alexander, anybody, did you want to add?
Yes. I would answer this question or pose this question differently. How much funding is provided by e-navigation for the different countries? Our colleague from Korea gave a direct answer, $220 million over 3 years, I believe. 5 years. No one else answered the question, but I would say the question is, who cares? Because there's either not enough or too much. It's somewhere in the middle. If you look at what Daniel Breton explained for Canada, they did it within the existing system and infrastructure that they have from a bottom-up approach. My guess is, without asking Daniel, but I kind of know, it's 1/10 probably of what Korea will spend, but Canada's perhaps 5 years ahead of where others have started. In the U.S., I don't know what the amount will be, and again, who cares? It's more what progress can be made based upon meeting the needs of users. And if I were to ask the question, how much does the internet implementation cost? And who did it? Is it government? No. And how much does internet cost to the user? Well, you have to get a service provider.
Thank you. Well, just for the record, Lee, the question wasn't how much is, how does it rank among other requirements in the federal government? Did anybody want to add to that? Thank you. Any questions from the audience? Yes.
Thank you,
Peter.
Helen. I'm Peter Phillips with Pacific Maritime Magazine in Seattle, and we have a e-navigation conference of our own, which we've been doing for 15 years every November. Many of you I know are there. I want to congratulate Helen and the panelists for giving us a very good overview of strategies around the country. Our readers are in the operations sector, professional mariners primarily, and my question is for John Hansen. As you're probably aware, and as those of you who are American mariners are aware, there's been some consternation about the current administration's national ocean policy, and I found it a little bit surprising that the Ocean Council is housed in the Department of the Environment, whereas I would have rather seen it in the Department of Commerce or the Department of Transportation, a more economic-oriented department within the federal government. My question is twofold for you. Number one, threefold actually. Number one, can you tell us why the National Ocean Council was housed where it was? Number two, who makes up the National Ocean Council? And number three, how are they chosen?
John?
Let me just jot those down so I get all of them. To your question about the National Ocean Council specifically, the group that I guess houses the the council is the Council on Environmental Quality, and that's a part of the White House. And you'll have to forgive me, this is, being located here on the West Coast, I can't speak directly for the White House and the folks who have staffed the National Ocean Council, but I believe the policy itself, when it came out through the executive order, was placed sort of through the Council on Environmental Quality, largely just sort of for staffing and capacity purposes. In terms of the actual membership of the National Ocean Council, that's really the guts of the effort, and that does include everybody from the environmental agencies like NOAA and EPA and others, but also DOD with Navy, Homeland Security with Coast Guard, Department of Transportation, Army Corps, and others. So the intent is really to cover the full suite of the federal government's perspective on ocean and coastal uses. And I can speak just from my knowledge of the other regions that are a little more developed. It's obviously environmental issues are represented and perspectives are there, but it is largely influenced by transportation needs, commerce, economic, in addition to environmental. And I think to speak to your larger point, something that's becoming crystal clear, I think, to the federal government is the need to recognize the economic drivers that really push ocean and coastal uses. And folks in this room, I think, are well aware, probably more than most, of how those drivers influence policy and how they need to really be represented, and that this isn't just a pure sort of environmental push. And I think where we've sort of ended up is that there is a need to recognize that for ocean planning and marine planning to be put in place, all of those interests have to be fully represented. And within each region, they're going to be a little bit different. On the West Coast, and Washington's coast and Oregon and California is going to be a little different than the Gulf of Mexico and their region. And same for, the upper Northeast versus the southern eastern coast. And then look at Alaska and sort of the region around there. And I think the takeaway is that the federal government is mandated to work together more efficiently through the National Ocean Policy. But beyond that, it's up to the regions themselves to decide what to do with that. And if the states really want to step forward and say, these are our issues, whether they're environmentally driven, whether they're economically driven, whether they're all of the above, it's up to them, along with tribal governments and local stakeholders, to tell the feds, this is what we want you to pay. Excuse me, this is what we want you to be paying attention to. And then it's on the feds' shoulders to say, well, here's how we can respond and interface with you in a better way to do that. A lot of it's herding cats, and honestly, my role in this in just the last few months has been having conversations with Navy, Coast Guard, EPA, others to say, what are you all doing to talk to one another? Excuse me. And how do we get you communicating? And then doing the same with the states and with tribal governments to say, where are we hearing some issues that we can help you with, and then go from there. So I hope that answers your question. In terms of the actual selection process, it really was, not anybody out, it was everybody in, everybody get around the table, and then go from there.
If I could add to that, because I do work with the National Ocean Policy in Washington, and was actively engaged from the start. It is co-led by the director of the Council of Environmental Quality under the White House, and also with the director of the Office of Science and Technology Policy, also a White House office. It really evolved because, I don't even know if you remember, but in one of the very first State of the Union addresses by the president, our current president, he did make a notation that ocean conversation was all over the place. There's been conversation about moving NOAA into Interior or leaving it under Commerce. How do you get all of those entities in one spot? It is not unlike maritime transportation, as I said. It was a very active political in the Council of Environmental Quality who helped move it forward. And from the beginning, I have to tell you, it's gone so full circle. It was fairly myopic in the beginning, and as agencies became involved and they realized a lot of the staffing is really by the agencies themselves. They send a detail into that office and they come and go. It evolved. There was a start in the conversation where actually the Office of Management and Budget proposed in the National Ocean Policy conversation that the Committee on Marine Transportation System be broken up, and that all the environmental components of MTS be managed under the National Ocean Council. And it was really pushback by the Department of Transportation. We worked very hard for the politicals to have pushback, and it didn't take long before, in a following meeting, they said, no, 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 National Ocean Policy and the Council does not want to deal with infrastructure investment in the maritime transportation system. And so, and frankly, Admiral Thad Allen walked into the White House and said, no way in hell is it going to happen. And it didn't happen. White House said, okay, we'll back down. The maritime folks are very much engaged. So I would say that if we'd had this conversation in 2009, I would be much more alarmed. And a number of years ago when I spoke at your conference, Peter, I kind of said, folks, take up and notice that there is an initiative on ocean policy and you need to pay attention. But it's come so far since then. And as a reminder, coastal management and planning, coastal marine spatial planning, is only one of 9 different components in the National Ocean Policy. You have a whole component and initiative on the Arctic, and a whole initiative on ecosystem-based management and sustainability and data management. So it is one component. We're very much engaged in the Arctic-related stuff on maritime transportation. We're engaged in trying to have a sense of bringing in expertise to help people understand how the other 8 components fit into the maritime transportation system. So I have to give a lot of credit to the federal agencies that handle MTS. They're very much engaged. Thank you. Sir.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Geir Fagerhus from Marsec Excel, a relatively small organization in this context, but it's kind of a funny story that I feel obliged to speak up for a large entity called the European Commission in this context. In Europe, we have today an accelerating investment from the European Commission into e-navigation and sea traffic management activities. We have projects like AXIS and Mona Lisa that we will hear about later in the conference. And when it comes to pan-European implementation, the Commission is indicating to us that they are willing to invest billions into a pan-European sea traffic management system within the next 5 to 10 years. So it's a lot going on in Europe, and we hope to bring that to you during this conference.
Thank you. Sir, are you one of the individuals that had talked about the cloud-based system? Yes, okay. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Any other questions? Right down here and then over there? Yeah, okay.
Thank you very much. Mike Bergman from Jefferson, also speaking as president of CRM. Very interesting presentations. Thank you very much for that. Congratulations. What I'm interested to hear from all of you is actually a certain component what I'm sometimes missing. When you take a look to classic navigation, paper navigation, the end user, the mariners, they did not go around and purchase the paper charts from every individual country, even though they produce it. They go to their chart dealers and purchase it there. They want to have from one body everything what they need. Now, when I see the different portals which are developed, which is great, I cannot imagine that the mariner actually will go out and will browse the portal, will get the information they need while they're on the voyage or in preparation of the voyage and so on and so forth. What I see as an potential is to have a similar concept of data service providers consolidating those information together, because a ship goes not only into the St. Lawrence Seaway, not only to Korea, but goes internationally. So what is your view on integrating or collaborating with industries, with data service providers, to actually ensure that the end user can easily get access to the data, utilizing the portals, the great portals which are developed by individual countries?
Panelist? Sir, go ahead.
If I can start, you're actually touching a very key point about making sure that e-navigation actually works globally. We can do so much as government agency to provide information, the right information, in the format that actually can be used. Authoritative information, that's my favorite word, is what we need to focus on. There's so much we can do, and I was hopefully clear in my presentation that I don't see ourselves trying to actually develop the software that actually, or systems that Mariners is going to start using and all of that. Mariners are responsible for navigation. That's their duty to do. And we've seen in the past, we've got system integrators essentially that are taking government information and making it in an easy format for Mariners to use. I don't see that changing. I see that enhancing as we move together. And we're going to be very glad to sit down and talk about how to do this kind of harmonization. But that actually takes a level of maturity by the various organizations to come together. We need to agree on early deliverables. We need to agree on pieces of information that's going to be standardized among the globe. What is a notice to shipper? What is a notice to mariner? What is the service that we actually see for notice to shipping, that we actually call in Canada, in an e-navigation environment worldwide? Once we define that, I call that an app, that dream, that system that's going to work, how do we then go back each in our country and populate the information that will make this, I'm going to call it again an app, this app to work essentially, and who are the people who are going to make that happen? Who are the developers, the software developer? What are the responsibilities of each government agencies to provide this authoritative information to enable this service app to actually function so that when a mariner go from one country to another, it's getting the same services powered by a good partnership with the providers like me, with the service integrator who actually will make that happen, and with the proper systems to exchange the information from the providers to the actual users. And I will even go to the future, because once you can actually do that, and that's where we need to think about the future, because once we actually have a good flow of information between the users and the mariners, that's where we start changing how we actually see ourselves as a traditional government agency to provide buoys to put down in the water and all of that. And right now we're actually charging for the number of buoys that are there.